Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan, and my guest today is Kent Scott of Two Long Dogs Homestead in Alberta, Canada. Calendar. But so Kent and I have been chatting on Instagram for quite a while, and he has a really great story. And he is a new homesteader, but you've been planning this for a while.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So tell us, thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
You moved from you just moved here in 2000 in well here in Alberta in 2022 you were saying,
Yes.
and so just before we hit record you were saying you didn't even have beds. I mean the moving truck was going to be 5 days or whatever, but you brought a shovel
Yeah.
with your kids and your wife and
Yeah.
your dogs.
Mm.
But so you brought a shovel because you knew you would be without all of your stuff for a few days, and you had ordered trees.
Yeah, I did. I had ordered trees from a nursery about a few hours north of us, and then I knew that they were on their way, and I had nothing to do. All of my stuff was somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. So, like I said, I had my shovel, I had my master gardening plan. I knew where certain things needed to go. Oh, I think I also might have brought a measuring tape too to make sure the trees were in the right spots. But yeah, I went to it as soon as we got here.
As an engineer, I would expect nothing less.
That's in my nature, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Oh, yeah, that worked out for sure. And so, oh, but so you were saying also that when you were looking at houses, like you looked at this house and you could like see where the trees were going to go.
Yeah, yeah. So when we were looking, we had, like I mentioned to you, we had lost out on a couple of houses. The housing market was hot, and then we stumbled across this property, and I was like, "Whoa, look at this property!" To my wife, and she's like, "Whoa, like we could do so much with that." And then like all of a sudden, my brain's like, "Oh, oh, so much. We could do so much with that property."
You see
And
that too, huh?
and it's funny because like if the guy that sold us this place could see it now, because he had the most meticulously cared for lawn, and I have removed it 1 square foot at a time. So yeah, that's
That's
kind
the
of,
homesteader way.
yeah, right, yeah.
Who needs
So
grass?
we're saving a little bit though because we have kids. We need some place for them to run that isn't on top of my plants. So
Don't touch my plants.
yeah, it's for the plants, not for my kids.
Gotcha. Oh my gosh. And so you moved from Vancouver, which is I don't know if I told you, my sister's it's one of their favorite places. But
It's I mean, I grew up there. I was born there. It's an absolutely beautiful place. You're wedged in between like the coastal mountains and the Pacific Ocean. Like it's gorgeous. It's the warmest place in Canada, I think, all year. So there's a big draw to that area of Canada.
right. And you were saying it's zone 9?
I think so. Somewhere between zone 8 and zone 9. There was yeah, you could plant like any type of like, American stone fruit, peaches, sweet cherries, things like that.
Right.
Um, it was a learning curve. Like certain herbs overwinter there that just die here, and I gotta do them every year. So yeah,
But so yeah, and so now your zone, you said 3, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Zone 3B, I think. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint myself on the little, those maps where they're all color coded, and you're like, I think I'm about here. So I think I'm zone 3B.
Can we zoom
Yeah,
in a little bit?
yeah, exactly. On the paper, you're like,
Right? Oh my gosh. And so when you moved, you already had planned trees, but you said you had like a program or something so you could like move things around and test
uh,
out where things are going to go.
yeah. So my line of work, I get perks of having technological advances that maybe most gardeners don't. So I have a program called AutoCAD that I had availability to. So I had my whole property drawn to scale, and then I took it upon myself to draw maximum tree canopies to scale, And then I literally was like dragging and dropping these trees around my property with their full canopies and been like, okay, like if I put one here, will it block this tree? And it took a long time to come up with this plan, but it was fun for me. That was like, I spent so much time, probably more than I should have. And I still tinker with it to this day because I haven't done the rest of my yard.
Right.
But having this plan, like having an overall master plan, and it doesn't have to be technical. It can be like, hand drawn. If you just have a plan, you can do little pieces at a time, right? Like I have plans for dozens more fruit trees here, but finances and time will dictate when those go in. But I have a plan for them. I've built their beds. I know where they're going to go so that I don't plant anything there. And when the time comes, I'm just going to drop them in there, right? So it's
Do you have
kind
like
of
labels on the ground, like peach tree here? Oh no, not peach tree because you're zone 3, but like apple
yes.
tree. Yeah,
No,
they're
but
labeled.
I have bamboo sticks in the ground. I've been like cherry tree goes here, plum trees going here. Yeah. It's
That's
funny, I
awesome.
actually reached out to the city I live in because part of my property is like a utility right of way and city property that's between, my house and the sidewalk there. And I said, hey, I don't like grass. And they're like, you can go ahead and do whatever you want there. Just know that if we have to do anything, things are going to come out. Right.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So I got like on my plans, I was like, okay, utility right away here. We're not going to put any expensive trees on here. We'll plant herbs and like, pollinating plants and stuff like that in areas that I can grow from seed or propagate from my own so that if they come through, it's like, it didn't really cost me stuff. I'll just propagate them again. It'll just take more time to replace them if they have to do utility work. So yeah.
Yeah.
Taking city land a little bit.
Blackberries. Plant blackberries. Make it really hard for them.
It's funny that so in Vancouver, blackberries were invasive, like all over the place. And I have to cover my blackberries in mulch out here, like inches of mulch for them to survive the winter. So I haven't done that. And we're hitting minus 16 here. So I think that's like 13 Fahrenheit. So I need to get on some stuff, but yeah, maybe in a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, uh, yeah, that's your place. Um, but so that's so interesting. I mean that I love that you've marked them. I love that you marked the little spots. That's so great. I wouldn't expect anything less now. Now that I've known you. Um, and so I like that you also say, as you can, like you said one bite at a time in your guest form. So like,
Mhm.
it's not like instant homestead. Everything is here. It's like it's a process and it's like it's like a living list type of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's always growing.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. So like you can get trees like I did, and I got some more mature trees because I wanted fruit sooner. That cost me a bit more. Or you could go the route of trading and like grafting and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be
Mm,
time, but it can likely not be both. It can if it's gonna say if it's gonna take you a lot of time, you're probably gonna save money, but you can't
right,
have it, right? So
right. And you don't have your stuff. Yeah, totally. And so you are doing you said you just put solar on your property this year?
yeah, we had the solar hooked up. We missed the longest day of the year by 2 days. I know, right? But yeah, we just got our solar panels hooked up and approved, and we haven't had an electricity bill for 4 months now. But monitoring it now that we've got probably 3-4 inches of snow on top of them, they're not producing so well at the moment. So I've expected not to maybe have a little bit of an electricity bill, and getting your solar at the tail end of summer, you don't get to build up that wealth, so
But
to
I mean, you
speak.
had 4 months off.
Yep, yep, 4 months off. So yeah, it was kind of nice. The current Canadian government has a program for greener homes, and it was a 0% loan, and I was like, oh, well, I like free money, and I've wanted solar forever, so sign me up. So I took advantage of that program, and yeah, so now it's on my roof, and I love. I love playing around with my app and seeing how much energy I have generated. And also now it's funny because the app that I have shows how much you're using as well. So it's
Hmm.
really been like a thing where I've been like, oh wow, okay, like if something's small, we've learned to like use the toaster oven a lot more than using like the big oven, where we just fire up the big oven. And then now I'm watching this happen. I'm like, oh wow, that like really does spike, and you use a lot of energy to
Yeah.
reheat something sometimes, right? So there's been little things like that that we've learned
Yeah.
to save us through this whole thing. So
Awesome. Oh my gosh. And you're doing composting?
yes, yeah. So not the we do lazy composting. We just have a 3 bin system. I know it's perfect. It's
I think that's the standard, isn't it?
I've seen a lot of people get into hot composting where you can make your own compost, super fast. And I
Sure.
just I don't have time for that. I spend so much time with the plants that when they die, they go into the compost and I don't look at them again. And with a 3 bin system, you kind of every year you're getting 1 bin and you're filling up the next one, and then subsequently that one's going to be ready for that following year.
Yeah, but it's like the OG. And it's also like buildable with pallets, right? Did you use pallets to build it?
Yes, I
You
I
did.
think yeah, I think I found some screws in my toolbox. Yeah, I went on marketplace, pallets free. I think I had to go to a couple different places and cost me zero to build. So yeah, I love those projects where you can get something. It's been there for 3 years and it cost me no money. And this year was the first year I got a full like pallet zone worth of compost, and I amended every single bed, and I was super happy about it. Didn't cost me a dime.
That's so cool. It's so satisfying, isn't it? You're like,
It was, and even so, I did when you start mixing it in and you're feeling it. It's like, wow, this is like so soft and fluffy. Because you were talking about your clay soils, and we've dealt with something similar here, and it's taken 3 years, but I'm like, oh, okay, I think the soils are starting to come around here. They're no, like, you don't put a shovel in, and then you get this like log of clay that falls off your shovel. It kind of the dirt starts to break apart, and I think
mhm.
adding compost every year has
Sweet.
made that change. And
Awesome. Very cool. And so in composting, I that's it's such a smart thing. It's such an easy thing. Like you're gonna have table scraps and
mhm,
and and then you can use that for your garden. So it's like it literally I love that. Composting is it's just such a simple and smart thing to do because you're using your leftover scraps and then you're also putting it into your garden to grow your new stuff.
right, and I I try not to waste food, but unfortunately, with kids, it happens. And sometimes when it happens and it goes into the compost, I'm like, it's wasteful, but at least it's not totally going to waste, right?
No,
So
I mean,
yeah,
it'll be used for sure.
yeah, and we're really lucky that our community has a community composting program, so I don't have to deal with meat and oils and stuff like that. So I can really just focus on my compost to be, you know, greens and browns, because that's what you want in your compost.
Mhm.
Uh, Bats and everything, you're going to start drawing in pests. You don't want that. So we're pretty lucky to have that available. So we have minimal garbage here every week. So it's kind of nice.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. And so let's see. I had a thought. I lose it every time. Oh, and you were saying also that when you're buying a lot of things secondhand, like your shovel, not shovel, you brought your shovel, but like your edging tool and stuff like that. So you've been buying a bunch of tools secondhand.
Yeah. So it started off on Facebook Marketplace. I kind of, well, actually, sorry, I should back up. I didn't take to it right away. When we first got here, I started buying stuff new. And then I just started looking at like the credit card bills stacking up. And then I was like, I can't remember what triggered it. I think one of my saws broke, and I was like, oh, I don't want to. I couldn't afford it, and I was just kind of went on Facebook Marketplace, and it was like some guy was like, oh, it works part of the time, but not all of the time. But I'll give it to you for $5. And I was like, okay, well, sure, I'll take a look at it. And it was the terminals basically had a whole bunch of corrosion on them. So when you stuck the battery on there, it wasn't making any connection. And I was like, well, that would have gone straight to the dump if you hadn't have, taken a look at it and maybe been able to repair it with not a lot of effort and time, right? So that was kind of the realization that I just got a pretty neat tool. I still use it today for $5, and it kind of got addicting, to be honest.
What else
I've
can I find? Yeah.
I've almost built like my entire wood shop now. I haven't yet used it. It's getting cold enough that I want to get out there to start using it because the garden shut down. But I've almost built an entire wood shop out there for building. I want to build a cold frame this year. I want to build some more birdhouses and get more like habitats for creatures and stuff out there. And it's all through free pallets I've gotten. I take them apart, reclaim the wood. Hopefully,
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not
Absolutely.
thrifted tools. So.
Right. And so you're building like birdhouses or critter houses out of the pallets. You're just using that, reusing that wood.
Yeah, essentially, I was looking for a project that me and my sons could do this year. And they've always taken to, so when we moved in, there was a few birdhouses around and they were taking to them and they're starting to get a little old. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll build some new ones. So I asked them, Daddy built birdhouses. Would you paint them with me? And they got super excited. So hopefully I can, maybe get a couple built before Christmas here and they can have something like that for a Christmas present, homemade, and then we can paint it in the new year or something like that and put it up. And then they'll get super excited when a bird moves in the spring, right? So
That's awesome. How old are they?
6 and 4.
That's perfect for like projects like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But they want to watch now and help. And I'm like, I don't really know if I want you around the saws quite yet. So,
I mean, I'm sure that there are kids younger than that who
oh,
probably,
there are. I'm sure there are. Yeah.
but you're not used to that yet. You're not ready,
Not there yet. Yeah. I'm still working on that aspect. I was a city boy at one point.
right?
Where, yeah, I definitely was a city boy at one
Well,
point.
well,
Still probably am. Still probably am, but I'm working on it. I'm working on being able to do stuff myself.
yeah, totally. So now you were mentioning that your community has the composting program.
Hmm.
Are you involved in the community?
Yeah, I am involved in the community. Not so much that program. That program is run by the municipal office here.
Right.
But there are quite a few communities, or sorry, volunteer groups that we work with on the homestead. One of them is a youth group that gets kids out. The local agriculture society donates a whole bunch of land so that these kids can, teenagers can go out and learn a skill that will be with them for the rest of their life. And there's another group out there called the Airdrie Urban Farm Collective, which is for people who don't have yards but want to enjoy the farming aspect of it. So they
Oh,
have
I
a
love
huge,
that.
and everybody comes in. I think it's like Wednesdays and Saturdays they meet, and everybody shares in the harvest, and whatever is extra, they either sell and the profits go to the food bank, or they just donate the food straight to the food bank. Same with the youth group that we help. They donate food straight to the food bank. I think combination last year. I don't know how much of it was my involvement, but I think they donated like 1,700 pounds of food to the food bank.
It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So we kind of saw these groups and what they were doing, and I have a knack for starting seeds and getting really nice looking vegetables going. I have a whole indoor growing setup that I start all my vegetables from seed. Uh, and we said, well, let's make a few extra. And then I started making a few extra and a few extra and a few extra. And I got a second tent. And so now we grow all these plants for ourselves and we donate a bunch to these groups to keep their startup costs down in the spring, because we all know that if you go to a store and suddenly you're trying to fill 20 tomato plant orders, that racks up pretty quickly, pretty
Right.
quickly. So yeah, we grow them all winter in our basement. I refer to it as my dungeon because it's pretty dark down there. But yeah, and then yeah, we donate those, and then another third of the plants we have a spring plant sale where I kind of advertise in the local community, fresh, local, chemical-free plants. Come and get them,
Yeah.
and then those people that can afford to grow their own food perfect. I've just made, put food on somebody's plate that's grown here, 0 miles to that food, basically. Well, maybe a few, but you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then all the people that can afford to grow their own food, I take that money and then again I donate it to the food bank because we just heard so many stories of people working full-time jobs and relying on the food bank to put, food on the table for their kids. And it's heartbreaking to see that. So that was kind of when I heard that these kinds of things were happening in our community, where I was like, I know this person, they're working like full time and they're struggling to put food on the table. And then I'll be honest, like I started growing plants with the intention of making a profit, and the amount of time and effort into it, I was just like, I'm making less than minimum wage, to be honest. I was like, so why am I doing this? Is it for me? Is it for somebody else? So I kind of was like, well, let's expand on this. Let's not do it for me. Let's do it for others, because I started wanting for profit because we were struggling. But then you hear all these stories about people struggling, and to me, I had just never encountered like that level of struggle in my life, and I'm thankful for that. But it was a little eye opening to be like, wow, okay, you struggle to put food on the table for your kids, and you're working full time. So like, where do you get money from? You going to work another
Right.
job where you be with your kid at all now? So that's kind of where this whole community service kind of thing started.
Freaking beautiful, man. I
Thanks.
love that. I mean, it's so true. Like you're like, oh, I really would like to recoup some of my money or whatever, but then, you see that there are people that are, struggling to make ends meet, and you kind of forget about your own problems.
Yeah, you do forget about your own problems for sure. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the empathetic side of me where I start trying to put myself in their shoes, and I just was, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to envision that because, man, I got kids that ask for snacks every 2 seconds, and I'm so thankful that like I'm able to give them mostly healthy snacks, not always. I'm not gonna lie, right? But I don't struggle, and that person does. So it's not what I can do to help myself anymore. What can I do to help people like that?
That's awesome. Um, I mean, yeah, when I was in Maine, I volunteered for a farm that just grew organic produce to donate to the food banks. Um, and I, like you, like I don't feel like I have lots of money, but at the same time, like it's 2 hours every week that I would just work to grow stuff. And it's just so satisfying. And to know that it's not just like, mac and cheese and, peanut butter or whatever, that they're getting like fresh vegetables. And it's very satisfying, and it just makes you feel better about the people that you live near.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh, that's, I love that. I love that, Kent.
Love that too.
All
That's
right.
the. I mean, it took a while to get to this place. It was kind of a slow process to see what needed to be done here, but I'm very happy. And when you see those people come to pick up those plants, and I don't know if I have it here, but yeah, I got the kids that I donated all the plants to. They got this big poster board and they colored it and drew on it and said thank you very much to the Scott family. And I still, it's up there on my wall there. I still have it there because it just kind of reminds me of like how many kids that like helped this summer. I don't know what they were going to do, but they had a garden to attend to, and they were doing they were helping a good cause while doing that. So yeah,
Totally. Yeah. Do the kids help with that? Like help with
not
their,
quite, not
yeah.
quite. They're really good at eating the end product right now, or saying, "Hey kids, the raspberries are ripe," and they'll run out into the yard and
I
okay,
bet
okay,
they
I'll
will.
go pick the raspberries, and where did all the raspberries go?
I don't know. What's on your face? I don't know.
Yeah, red
I didn't
fingers.
do it. Yeah. But I mean, that would be fun to get them involved in that eventually. Yeah. I mean, do you guys have community gardens? Is that what you're, so they're like They have these community gardens that are going.
Yeah, so this is one the one group, the Farm Collective that I think it's a church land that they donated the land and they started working on it. They've been there for years now because there are a couple of community gardens in town and they're run by the I believe the Airdrie Agricultural Society. But land is limited. There's so many not so many beds. I think a second one opened up this year, so a bunch of people got off the wait list. But there's a wait list for that. So this Farm Collective kind of is open, come one, come all, bring your gloves. For anybody that doesn't have, the ability to go to the community gardens or, in their backyard.
Yeah, awesome. Very
Yeah,
cool.
it's really been really neat to see the community here, especially the gardening community. And they have seed swaps, which I think is coming up here pretty soon. And yeah, it was, I am a little addicted to seeds and collecting them. So when I went there, I was like, oh, there's so many seeds and I don't have enough containers.
So many seeds. And they're like different varieties than you're used to. And you're like, ooh, I don't have that.
Oh yeah, exactly. So people are like, oh, I have this flower. I was like, oh, no, I have that one. She's like, yeah, but it's black. And I was like,
And it's
oh,
not the same color.
same color. And I do have a golf garden that I've been trying to grow. So,
My goth garden.
oh
That's
yes,
so
the
cool.
growing trend of black flowers. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Uh, what else? So let's see. Let me get my thoughts together. What do you have planned? Like what's coming next?
Oh, so
I mean, you've got trees eventually, but
yeah, that's a long-term plan. I don't know if we'll necessarily get the trees this year or not if finances allow it. Like I said, it's kind of a have your master plan. If you can plant a tree or find a tree on clearance, perfect. Throw
Mhm.
it on in there. So yeah, I would love to get that expansion done this year. But kind of been also dealing with an injury. So if that doesn't get done, I may or may not um, do
Right.
some work this year. So long-term plans is January. I think I'm going to try to relax for the next few months through Christmas, and then January 1st, I'm going to fire up that grow tent. Usually start with onions and shallots and leeks. Those are one of the first ones to go. Then some hot peppers, and yeah, usually every week I'm planting a new tray of something to all coincide with our last frost date out here.
Wow, that's cool. But you were saying, I think you said in our chat that you're like putting together some like courses and stuff. Is that or
Oh, I've been trying to. No, I haven't been trying to do. Oh, sorry. No, I've been looking at the master gardening course. Did we talk about that? Is that what we talked about?
I don't know. I don't know, but you said you were gonna we were working on something for this winter, like
I think
organic.
that's more or less the community work that we've been doing. I think that's basically my winter plans here is to dig down, get those plants started, and get
Cool.
them out in the community. That's really my big plan here in the next coming months here is to get that all sorted out. But there's
Hmm.
lots to do if you try to grow 1,000 plants.
1,000?
Yeah, I mean, I grow a lot of onions, and they start off pretty small, and I count each one of those as a single plant. But there's 1,000 plants. I'm not kidding. I can fit 100 onions in a tray, and I have quite a few trays of onions going every year. And one of the groups said that they grew the biggest onions that they ever had because they'd never tried anything from seed. They always grew onions from sets. I don't know if you've
Right.
ever tried some seeds, but they grow much bigger.
I
So they
have
were happy with that.
I've not been very successful.
Hmm.
My light's flickering.
Uh-oh. Is there a storm there?
I don't know. Uh, okay. I love that there's a group that brings like kids and people to the garden that just don't have the land for it. That's
Yeah.
such a cool thing. Um, I have a friend in Ohio in Cincinnati that is trying to do something like that for her parents' house, but like
Mm-hmm.
teach kids or people, to grow the food, to harvest the food, to like process the food,
Mm-hmm.
and to cook with the foods and teach them about like chickens and stuff like that. Um, just to give people that experience because Cincinnati is a big city.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I love that, being able getting people outside to learn about nature, to learn about where food comes from because it is not born on the shelves at the store in plastic wrap.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just so important to know where your food is coming from. And I mean, you had to you moved there partially because of I'm trying to I'm trying to make words work and it's not working very well. But like, so you said part of the reason that you moved is because you had a health issue that you had to, you were dealing with and like changing your life around.
Hmm.
And this sort of fell into that is, eating healthier and also being more active.
Hmm. That kind of actually came after the move. Really lucky that I found a family doctor that like truly like he cares about me. I can see it when I talk to him, and I'm super lucky. So once we had moved out here, yeah, I'd started kind of doing the gardening thing, but not to a real serious extent. And then when my doctor was like, you are at risk of heart attacks, strokes, your diabetes is out of control, that can lead to possible amputations. And I'm like,
Oof.
okay, that
Could you
doesn't sound.
sugarcoat that a little bit?
And so I mean, I needed something harsh,
Yeah.
like honest. So that was kind of like what triggered the deep dive down the rabbit hole. Working with a diabetic nurse who's also a registered nutritionist and teaching me about some of the ways our food system is today and ways that you can combat that. And yeah, so started off with, she said, hey, did you know that you can eat sourdough bread? And I'm like, that's like the whitest bread there is. And she's like, and as a diabetic, you
But
can eat it. And I'm like, what? How? It's like you've told me don't eat white bread, but now you're telling me eat white bread. And I was like, okay, I'll eat this. so
don't
so
have
I
to twist my arm.
yeah, don't twist my arm, right? So that was kind of where the bread deep dive happened. And then one day I came across people milling flour, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, and I live in Alberta. We're a grain province. We grow a lot of grain out here. So went on and did a search for thrifting and found a
Used bread.
mill for I think it was a couple $100, and I think they can go for $1,000 brand new or something. They're not a cheap
Yeah.
thing. Found a local granary, picked up some grain, and then the flavor that you get out of that bread when you take like the wheat berries, you mill them, you make your bread, and you cook it like within an hour. Oh, the flavor it's out of this world. And I have one of those little like blood sugar patches on. I can eat that bread, and yeah, it spikes, but not like a piece of white Wonder Bread would spike my sugars. My white Wonder Bread is just like a kind of thing. So yeah, there's a reason it tastes so good.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. And so have you seen, sorry, it's crazy windy. That's why there's a flicker. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the heat turning on, but no, it's outside. I'll have to check the chickens later. But have you seen a lot of like improvement in your health since,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I mean, the outside time must be hugely like a huge help.
Yeah, definitely getting outside. Being a gardener, I mean, it's low impact activity for long periods of time. And as you age, that's kind of what the body needs. And I even learned that I think I need to start stretching this year before I start gardening. Not that low impact. so,
Oh
so there's
God.
been a big change in definitely like I think I was just about 250 pounds, and I just got that back down under 200. I think that getting down below 200 was the
Hey,
first time I was 16. I think I've done that. So yeah, it was a pretty happy moment for me. But it wasn't just bread. It wasn't just gardening. There's, I had help from my support team, my wife and my doctor and my nutritionist saying like, this is what you need to eat. And, you know, keep working at it. It doesn't have to be suddenly the next day you're buying a grain mill and making fresh milled bread, right? Like just try making it yourself. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll hate it, but if you like it, you'll really like the bread that produces, right? It's so good. Fresh butter on it. Oh.
Oh my gosh, that sounds pretty amazing. I love bread. I don't eat a lot of bread.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't love bread?
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't know. So you that's such an inspirational story. I mean, really, it's we all need to hear this story. We all need to take this, really seriously. We are such a sedentary um
Mhm.
nation,
Mhm.
world nation.
I mean, I'm from Canada, and I mean, not everybody has an office
True.
job, but I do work an office job. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my getting to that point where my doctor had to get mad at me was, sitting for 40 hours a week and then coming home and being too tired to do anything else. But that was really just, the lack of energy was due to the types of food that I was eating. And, now that we're eating better, my energy levels are in a better state and I have time to work out and, be healthier with
Right?
energy. Wow, it's amazing what you can do with energy.
I don't know. I don't know what those words mean. Um, but that's so cool. I love to hear stories like that. I mean, I'm sorry that it took that to get you where you are, but it makes such a difference to have the outdoor time to be busy and doing things that will ultimately affect you obviously, but also, take care of your family. And your kids are going to have a whole different situation than you did growing up.
Well, exactly, and I do hope to get my kids into gardening like as soon as possible here. Like they were starting like towards the end of the season, they were coming out and they were having fun ripping out carrots. So, next year hopefully I can get them gardening and
Put them
doing
to
this.
work.
Yeah, put them to work, right? I need free labor. I have the bees working for me, but now I need the children working for me.
For sure. Wow. So when I say the word sustainability, Kent, what does that mean to you personally?
So I might have a slightly different take on it, and that comes from being an engineer by trade. Um, kind of look at it as you need to be informed. So you know you need to know where. So for instance, the thrifting thing. Where do all these things come from? Well, they all start in the ground. They're all raw materials. Those all take energy to get them up and out of the ground. Then those are transported and they're made into individual components. Then those individual components are shipped again to somewhere else where they're manufactured again. And then that is then shipped to a store where it's sold to you. Some I might have missed a few steps, but that's kind of like
How
the
many
overall
hands have touched that
how much
and how far has it traveled?
and how much energy has been expended trying to do that. So I use the saw I just bought as an example. Oh, it works sometimes. The laser doesn't work on it, right? So okay, that's fine. I understand what I'm getting into buying this. Well, it was a frayed cord, re-terminated the wires on it, which is a pretty simple job. And it's actually kind of funny. The laser is battery operated. And when I popped open the battery compartment, the batteries were just exploded and corroded. So I
Mm.
took them out, put new batteries in, and the laser started working. Funny how that works. So the amount of energy that goes into making all of those components, putting that saw together, putting it out there, if that guy just throws it away, all that energy is just wasted, right?
Mm.
So I like to think of, you know, part of this growing local, energy. Well, I do use energy to grow those, but I got my solar panels now. So still technically grown by light, right? um, so there's all that energy that's involved. And that's what I see in all of this here, and being informed and knowing what it takes to get all of that stuff to you and why you shouldn't just throw it away. Is it junk? I don't think it's junk. So that kind of leads me into my next part where you have to kind of also be innovative to be sustainable, right? You're going to be presented with problems. You're going to be presented with waste. Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure out solutions to, solve those problems? Can you figure reduce that waste, minimize that waste, reuse that waste into something else. So like one of those videos I posted, it was a dishwashing rack from a dishwashing, like in a restaurant, throwing it away. Anybody wants these? Sure, I'll take them. It was just an open bottom thing. And I saw, well, I was going to make a compost sifter out of that, put some mesh in between some wood and make a compost sifter. And this person just delivered it to me for free. So you have to be able to problem solve, I guess, in this state. If you want to do things sustainably, do things yourself. You're not going to know the answers right away. Are you going to go figure that out? Trial and error? Ask somebody? YouTube? Oh,
I know.
Oh, I saw that one. So yeah, that's kind of my take on sustainability, is that you kind of, it's a technical view of it, but yeah, you need to be informed and you need to be innovative if you want to be sustainable. It's not just, okay, well, yeah, you want to reduce waste and stuff, but how are you going to do that? That's the challenging part of being. It's not just words, it's how do you implement that and make that change, and then continue to make that change on a day-to-day basis.
That definitely is a different view than I've heard. But I appreciate that. It makes total sense. I mean, especially thinking about it as you. But it does, I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, I love that you did that with the dish drainer thing. And that's so a compost sifter.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. You
So
don't you compost? You don't have a compost sifter?
I don't.
Oh, well,
I'm
maybe your compost is better than mine. Mine's chunky, so you just kind of sift the compost, and it makes it this nice, fine, fluffy stuff, and the big chunks go into the next bin and for next year.
right.
Yeah.
I probably should have a compost. I
They're not necessary, so it's a nice to have. I got it for free, so I took it.
and now you have it when you need it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Is there a message that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, it's have a master plan. I think it would be my biggest advice. Like I said, draw it out, know where you want to put things, and it might take some time to learn where the sun's going to be hitting your property. You might have to change it a couple of times. Don't jump down that hole, but it's going to take time. It's going to cost money. You can do it cheaply, but I think I've been told this saying before, and I always think it's hilarious. Where they're like, if somebody put an elephant on your plate, like, what would you do? How would you eat that elephant? And you're like, I'm not going to eat an elephant. Like, the thing's huge. Like, what are you talking about? But then, like, the analogy is, well, it's one bite at a time, right? Like, you're not going to get through it in a single sitting. You're going to have to keep working at it, and you're going to have to keep taking little steps forward or taking little bites out of the process to move forward. And I'm 3 years into this process, and I'm just kind of starting to feel like, comfortable with everything. There's a lot that goes into it, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there are just so many aspects to having a homestead. And you
Mm-hmm.
guys you don't have livestock yet.
No, we are still technically within city limits, so there are bylaws that we have to adhere to. We are allowed up to 4 chickens, and I did look into, yeah, I wish we could have more, but that's for my property side. We're allowed to have four, and then I looked into beekeeping as well, but unfortunately, there's bylaws that said I have to go around to like a 2 mile radius and get permission from everybody to say I can have bees, and that was part of the bylaw, and I didn't see that I wanted to spend the time when one person could have been like, no, I'm allergic.
Right.
So I just planted all of the pollinating flowers I could, and now I have no problem with bees in my yard.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, you don't have to hold on to them.
yeah.
You just mosey around.
Yeah.
But can't really there's not like well, I mean a bee house would be a hive.
Mm-hmm.
That breaks the laws, breaks the rules, but they are hanging out. And I wonder where they go.
The bees
Yeah.
in the mulch.
In the winter?
Yeah, in the winter. All the I hate trying to do videos on mulch because I know that they're there, but the,
I don't want to
the
make them mad.
the queen bumblebees will bury themselves in the mulch over winter. and just hibernate. I don't know how they do it. It gets cold, but they hide in the little pockets of the mulch, and they emerge in the spring and start the process all over again. And we have hundreds of bumblebees in our yard in the summer.
Oh,
It's really cool to go out there.
hmm. Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I was like, did they go south?
No, no, they don't migrate. They hibernate. It's crazy. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've been advocating for all these various types of mulch on my page lately. So you gotta you gotta mulch if you want those beneficial bugs to hang around for the winter and then be there next summer.
Hmm. Okay. So make a plan if you are interested in, doing anything really. Just make a plan and work at it a little bit at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Know what your end target looks like and take off little pieces at a time and try to keep working towards that target. But if you don't have that target, you may or may not be making progress towards what you want, right? So that's
Mhm.
why I like having that overall plan, so that every time I get out there and I decide to pick up the shovel and build something, and I'm not going to have to undo that in a couple of years.
Yeah, you know what's going there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's cool. I need to do that. I need to
Kind
do
of,
that.
kind of,
Anyway, so Kent, how can people find you, follow you? Because you have a very active Instagram.
I do, yeah. So I am the face that was behind and now trying to put it forward of Two Long Dogs Homestead on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. We don't I don't really go on the Facebook page quite as much anymore, but we're there, just not quite as active on the Instagram page. And we're always trying to spread the good word of gardening and sustainability through either education, or what am I doing, or how do you do this, or maybe a dose of humor in there, because we all like to laugh sometimes.
Oh, we have to laugh.
Yeah. So, and then gardening humor, why not?
Right. And you're doing like cooking, not cooking lessons, but you're
Just
sharing some recipes and stuff.
yeah, yeah. All these, that's another thing that over the years I've started off as a cook when I was 16, a line cook, and I just learned how to cook my whole life. So I just kind of started making all these recipes that my family eats on a daily basis. And when you're a Canadian gardener and you're starting to get into the winter and you try to make some content that's in line with who you are, well, let's cook with some fresh food and use some of these recipes that I know my family loves and I know other people love, because I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I love tacos, but I hate having those little taco seasoning packets with the hundreds of ingredients on them. Well,
Make your own,
maybe someday I'll help you make your own taco seasoning that's absolutely delicious, and you can vary it however you want. Make it
right?
yours, right? And that's the best part about cooking, is you take a recipe and you can tweak it and make it your own and love it.
Right. You
Yeah.
don't love fennel? Put something else in.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm very excited about that. I'm looking forward to your winter posting.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll get more active in January when the grow tent
Yeah,
fires back. And
right.
that's what I really hope to do, a lot more of the educational stuff on how to start seeds, how to grow indoors, because the climate I live in is not very friendly, and we have a 90-day grow season. And if you want to grow something that takes 150 days, well,
You'll
you
be
got to
ready to
figure out
one.
you got to figure out a way. So yeah, I go to work during the day, then go run down to the basement and take care of my plants at night.
Very good. Oh my gosh. And so the links are going to be in the show notes, you guys, but so two long dogs, two is TOO, not TWO or the number two. It's T.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
you'll maybe get the pun if you start looking at some of the puppy photos on there. But it all started with two sausage dogs. That was where the name and inspiration came from. So that's why they're too long.
but thank you so much, Kent, for sharing your wisdom and your story with us. I really appreciate that, and I hope that people will. You guys definitely give him a follow on Instagram because he's very entertaining and he's very smart.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, yes, thank you so much. And yeah, definitely you guys give a follow and check him out, learn from him and do your own thing.
Exactly.